Here, I thank CAD, I thank Ricardo for the invitation. It's great to be here at the second best school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thank you. Okay, that was uncalled for. Thank you. All right. Let me tell you why I'm here, how we got involved in the Atlas of Complexity, and why we think that learning is important for policymakers, not just for research and guys looking for tenure. Let me go back to a few years before I came to Cambridge and to MIT. I was a young student doing my undergrad in economics at ITAM, a very good school in Mexico City. And these were exciting days in Mexico. The country was going through an accelerated transformation, a market-oriented transformation. The days of state ownership of companies and protectionism were behind. Stabilization, macroeconomic stabilization was happening. There were some mantras about the economic transformation that was going on. Of course, one of the mantras was stability. Get inflation low, get financial stability, and development will happen. I do think that was absolutely right, and that's still on point. But there were other things that were said back then. And the one that I still find a little bit puzzling was that I've heard many extremely intelligent people back then, and this was 25 years ago, say the best industrial policy is no industrial policy. Back off. What governments were told back then, and these were the years of the Washington Consensus, the so-called Washington Consensus, was allow the markets to allocate resources. Governments should not impose. Governments should not intervene. The government should take care of macroeconomic stability, create an environment, and introduce market forces like trade liberalization. And that's exactly what we did in Mexico. And it's a great thing that we did. Particularly, we got into NAFTA, and we became one of the most open countries in the world. And today, Mexico, as you saw in Marcela's, one of Marcela's first charts, Mexico today is exporting more complex goods. In the yellow and blue dots, Mexico is full of blue dots. Those are machinery. Those are cars. Back in 1982, Mexican exports were 60%, two-thirds, 67% was oil. Today, manufacturing goods are 89%. So we can claim that Mexico's transformation from free trade is real, and it's clearly a success. However, some puzzles remain, and particularly if you are a Mexican, there are reasons to be not so happy about our opening to trade, and particularly our growth rate. So I'll try to, this is what you see here in the charts on your left-hand side. You see the Mexican growth rate from the average growth rate from 1983 through 2015, compared to other economies. Mexican growth rate was on average 2.4%. Compare that to Spain, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, and of course China, and it looks quite low. And this is not something that is due to the business cycle. This is a lot of years. This has got to be more structural. Mexico's ability to grow has not been there. Something happened. So this is the most important question on Mexican economic policy. Why is Mexico, a country that has done so many things right, has not been growing so fast? If you look at the last 20 years, Mexico has made a lot of progress in terms of its macro stability, the regulation of financial markets. There are many good things about, and more recently, deep structural reforms. The opening of the oil and gas sector, of the power sector, more competition in telecom, in the banking sector. So why is Mexico still growing like that? So, being an economist, when you look at growth over long periods of time, you ask about productivity. And what you see in the chart on the chart on your right is the average growth rate the level of productivity, total factor productivity, over a long period of time, from 1950 through 2010. And what we see is that since 1982, productivity growth in Mexico has been negative on average. And I understand that there are many ways to measure productivity, and there are some methodological questions. But any measure, I'm not going to put you, I'm not going to put here. I don't want to waste time looking at many charts. But believe me, every chart that you look at, even if it's labor productivity, total factor productivity, and different measures of doing it, it's the same picture. It's the same message. Productivity after 1980 in Mexico has not increased, and that's a troubling fact, because those are the years of the trade opening. Those are the NAFTA years. Those are the years of privatization of state-owned companies and of macro stability. So then this is very much an unanswered question. And let me move forward. Okay. So back in early 2013 in Davos, I had a chance to listen to Ricardo Hausmann speak about the Atlas of Complexity. And I was very much intrigued. And immediately I went harassing Ricardo after his talk. I told him, I want to try this for Mexico. Let's do it. What do we need? And he said, data. This is all about data. Give me the data, we'll give you the Atlas. It was not that simple, but that's the essence of it. And we got a good collaboration with the Mexican institution, CIDE, and CID, and now we have an Atlas. And this is a very powerful instrument, a very powerful tool to understand productivity growth in Mexico, and to try to get an answer to why productivity is not growing as fast. And the first thing that comes out is that there are different pictures of Mexico. It depends on what part of Mexico you look at and what industries, but particularly regionally. And this is a map of Mexico, and the darker the color, the greater the complexity in our atlas. And what you can see is that there are some regions in Mexico, for instance, the state of Nuevo León, that is just as complex as Italy. But there are some regions, Chiapas, that is very much in the south, very much right there with Uganda. And that is really when it becomes interesting. Because in the end, the fact that comes clear is that we don't know much about the specific dynamics of the economy regionally. And so we started looking closer. This is the evolution of complexity. You have 32 Mexican states. And what we see is this is between 2004 and 2014. This is a 10-year span. And what we see is that some states, like Zacatecas, Yucatán, Hidalgo, San Luis Potosí, states in these states, complexity is growing. But there are some states, and Chiapas is in the extreme right, where complexity is being reduced, where the distance between the trees and the jumps of the monkeys are slowing down. And other places where things are speeding up. Let me show you a close-up to the state of San Luis Potosí. This is San Luis Potosí in 2004. And this is San Luis Potosí in 2014. As you can see, many blue dots arise. If you can see the difference. In 10 years, many blue dots arise. That is basically the car industry. Mexico today is a powerhouse in building and exporting cars, and not only cars, but auto parts. And we're expanding into aerospace. Why? Because there are nearby trees. But the problem is that this is not happening throughout the country. So, and let me just move faster. What are we doing with this, and what have we learned so far? Well, first of all, this doesn't mean that we need to throw out free trade and macroeconomic stability out of the window and focus on something else. That would be a totally wrong message. On the contrary, what we see is that stability and market-oriented reforms are working, and are working very powerfully, as you saw in the case of San Luis Potosí. But they are not working everywhere. So we did something, again, is look closer. So we've worked again with Ricardo and CID on looking at the state of Chiapas, the state that is losing complexity the fastest. And what we've learned there, and Miguel Santos will speak later today about it from Chiapas, from the state of Chiapas, is that there are some things that the public and private sector can do together to speed up complexity. In particularly connectivity and complementarities. There are a lot of chicken and egg stories here where development has to start somewhere. You got to plant the tree or help the first monkey to move. And those are complementarity stories, it's chicken and egg stories. And a lot of the policies that have good potential to actually impact development are about that. And the other thing that we're doing is we're looking at different questions now. And these are exciting questions. For instance, now we're engaging in a study about Baja California, and this is a state in the north where growth is slowing down. It's a state that is losing competitiveness, even though it's in the core of the NAFTA region. And the question is the maquiladora, what's the translation for maquiladora? The twin plants, is this a stepping stone or this is just a trap? This, by the way, applies also to Ciudad Juárez and other border cities. So we're looking into that. We're looking now at places like the oil-intensive industry regions of Campeche and Tabasco to see, can we develop other industries that are nearby trees to oil and gas? So that when you're in the lower parts of the commodity cycle, can you do something? Is there something to, is there an alternative? So we're looking into that questions, and we're developing the Atlas 2.0. We're adding more data. So this is a process. I want to thank you, Ricardo, and all your team, because this has been an amazing learning experience. This is work in progress, and hopefully, and that's the most important thing, hopefully we can deliver some good policies as we learn in the process. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you, but most importantly, thank you for the learning.